All right, let's talk about properties of addition. So I'm going to pop over to the explanation just to chat here, and you might want to write down some things so that you can remember what these things are. So looking at this explanation, if I have blank plus 0 equals 3, that is the identity property. In fact, I bet I can, let's see, do this so I can write on it. This is the identity property because adding 0 gives the same identity, right? The same identity. So if you want to copy down this little example right here, you'll have this in your notes of what the identity property is. So the identity property is that just that if we add 0, we're going to get the same number, the same identity, right? If you see something like this, 6 plus 2 in parentheses plus 7, and then they don't change the order of the numbers, but they change where the parentheses are, 6 plus 2 plus 7. So notice the difference is the parentheses around 6 and 2 here, and the parentheses around 2 and 7 here. This doesn't mess up the addition in any way. You can add in any order you want to. It is called the associative property. So the way I recognize this property is you change who associates. I like to think of numbers as who sometimes. In parentheses. Okay, so another example of being able to change the order of addition, but you're going to get a different word, is when we have 2 plus 9 equals 9 plus 2. We just commuted them around. It's sort of like, I think about commuter cars, like going down an interstate. They're commuting to work and then they change lanes and they shift around and whatever to get where they're going. Changing the order of addition doesn't matter. This is the commutative property. We just change the order. I like to think about them commuting. They commute, changing lanes. Okay, so it's important to associative property, parentheses. Okay, commutative property, just change the order. If I'm looking at 6 plus x equals x plus 6, I just changed the order. There are no parentheses, so that will be the commutative property. The next one, I'm going to show you the explanation because we didn't get to write that one in yet. But the one at the bottom, 3 plus a plus 4 equals 3 plus a plus 4. See, we just changed the parentheses. We changed who associates with who. Like 3 and a are like best friends in the first one, and then on the right hand side, suddenly a and 4 are best friends, and the other number gets left out. That is the associative property. Let's look at the explanation because I want to show you that other property. Here's a nice little box with the different things in it. Okay, commutative, again, we're just changing the order. Associative, we're changing who is in the parentheses. We're changing who associates with who. And identity property, adding 0. And this is the one we didn't talk about. The additive inverse just means that if I take a number and I add its additive inverse is like the opposite, I will get 0. So it's like they cancel out because there's 3 on the positive side and 3 on the negative side, brings you right back to 0. So you can go down here, you can see those answers. You can pause this and copy down those examples if you want. All right, these are multiplication properties. So let's look at the explanation on this so you could get some notes. Let's look at the explanation. So something times 1 is 9. We actually know that 9 times 1 is 9. In this case, this is the identity property. Okay, with addition, the identity property is 0. With multiplication, the identity property is 1, because identity property, we're talking about what can we do to the number and still have the same number. Okay, b, 3 times 4 equals 4 times 3. It's the same as the property in addition. This is the commutative property of multiplication. We have a commutative property of addition and a commutative property of multiplication, and they are exactly the same, just at different times or plus. Blank times 3 is 0. 0 times anything is 0, so this is the 0 property of multiplication. And then down here, this should look familiar. 3 times 4 times 9 equals 3 times 4 times 9. But look what happened. We just moved the parentheses and we changed who associates with who. You can make up a whole drama here. You know, 4 and 9 are best friends, but 3 doesn't sit by them. They always talk to each other, and 3 is eating a sandwich all by himself. And then here, this is going to be a 9 in this. And 3 and 4 suddenly become best friends, and 9's all by himself. But you can do the same thing with multiplication, same thing with addition. What we're going to have here is the associative property. And here we have properties of real numbers, which means, notice that we have times, we have plus, and so we're going to have a little bit of everything here. Let's come down here to this chart, and you can see that the commutative property looks pretty much the same in addition and multiplication. The only thing that we will say is we'll say commutative property of addition, or we'll say commutative property of multiplication. The associative property looks pretty much the same in addition and multiplication. We'll just say associative property of addition, associative property of multiplication. The identity property changes a bit. In addition, we just add 0, and in multiplication, we times by 1. So it changes. Add 0 gives us our identity in addition, and times 1 gives us our identity in multiplication. The inverse property, it's kind of fun. In addition, we can take a number plus its opposite, and it equals 0. So maybe it's 5 plus negative 5, or 10 plus negative 10, or negative 2 plus 2. Those will all give you 0. In multiplication, what happens is we multiply a number times its reciprocal, and we get a 1. So let me show you. 1/3 times 3 over 1. So those are reciprocals of each other, equals 3 over 3, which equals 1. Or maybe it's 10. Well, let's even, I think we could even flip this and just make it not even a number with a 1. I mean, not even sure. That's a great idea, but notice that these guys cancel, got 1s all over the place, and that makes a 1. That is the inverse property. If you multiply a number times its reciprocal, you will get 1. Okay, the distributive property is a really useful property. It just means that if I have a number on the outside of parentheses, this one I feel like we could take a little bit longer talking about, but we are going to have to multiply it times each thing inside. Let me do this with numbers real quick so that you can see. Let's say I have 2 times 3 plus 4. Okay, we can actually do that, right? In order of operations, 3 plus 4 is 7, so it would be 2 times 7, or 14, correct? But suppose there's an x in there and I can't actually do that. There's a little trick. I can do 2 times 3, which happens to be 6, plus 2 times 4, which happens to be 8, and that will also give me 14. That is the distributive property. We'll be doing some more of that later, but that's what the word means. Okay, multiplication property of 0. If I have x times 0, it's going to equal 0. If I have 0 times x, it's going to be 0. That's kind of cool. So you might want to write those down. The problems are not difficult, but there's a lot of words involved, and it's just terms. The ideas themselves are extremely important, and the words are sometimes a little bit tedious.